welcome back to Unsightly Opinions. If you're new, my name's Tamara, this is Robbie, and you've seen it in the title. Today, we're going to be doing the inaugural episode of Unsightly Baking. Right now, there's a lot of people who can't access rehabilitation services, and there's new people to the blindness community every day. If we can share some of our tips and tricks on how we make our baking or cooking space accessible, that's gonna be great. We can share the knowledge, everybody wins. So I'm gonna give you the option today. I have this here blindfold. You can decide whether you want to wear it or not. If you want to help me showcase how we make things accessible, because you've never done blind baking before, that might be kind of nice.
And it gives me a great excuse if it turns out complete.
You can't say that word. So you don't think I'm cheating at home? I am also going to put on a blindfold today. Without further ado, let's dive in. Normally I would use my phone with a screen reader to tell the recipe, but because my phone is otherwise occupied, we are going to use the brailled recipe that I have right here. So I will read it to you since you are not a braille reader. That would just be too cruel and unusual for words. First things first, we're gonna find all of the dry ingredients.
I was not prepared for this.
So you need to get 3 cups of flour. Do you want me to do it first and explain how I do it?
Yes, I
Okay,
do.
so I have the flour is in the big container, but it's also braille labeled and it's labeled in print for you. And I'm gonna come in with some dry measures. It would be really nice if these came in a high contrast large print or if they had braille naturally on them, but they don't. So I just know that the biggest one is my 1 cup. So I dip it into the flour and I run it along the side, up the side, and I'm spilling. And you can use a knife or your finger to push off the excess at the top once it's full. Then you put it in your bowl. So 1, 2, your turn.
I'm just going to take it on trust that you handed me the single cup here.
Well, if I didn't, how would you know?
I have to stack the back up again and see which one's the biggest.
The more you can use your hands to do what your eyes would normally do, that's going to be the best tip I can give you. So if you have to level something off, use your finger, because then you're going to be able to tell if it's full, if it's not full, if you've overfilled, and then even it out from there.
So, how much better would you say gluten-free gingerbread works in terms of structure?
No, it's awful. I forgot to mention, this is gluten-free because I'm celiac, so the integrity of this is going to be questionable at best. Put the lid on and we'll... Oops, the lid fell right in. Next, we need to find the xanthan gum. So, I'm going to actually let you find it first. So how would you go about finding the xanthan
Well,
gum?
I do remember where you put it.
Okay, go for it.
Xanthan was in the middle, I'm quite sure. If I wanted to find out for certain, I suppose I could taste it.
I
could
wouldn't
just
recommend
breathe it in.
Hand me what you think the xanthan gum is.
I think this is the xanthan gum.
That?
Yes.
What you just handed me?
That what you just handed me?
Okay, open that up and then tell me what you think that is.
That's brown sugar.
Yep.
Unmistakable.
Try again. That's an egg and you know it. You're being ridiculous. Here, take the egg back. That says ground ginger.
Darn.
Okay, I'll get it. This one says
I
that.
can just keep
Here you go.
adding things.
So we need 1 1/2 teaspoons of xanthan gum. Here are your dry measures. Again, it would be really nice if they were labeled in a way that you could access, right?
Indeed.
And I mean, they're already embossed into shape, so it would be no trouble for a manufacturer to include braille. Here's your 1 teaspoon.
Oh. How do you know?
Because I can feel the size of them. I just know.
Just by the size of them.
Just by the size of them, I can tell.
Now what?
So now exactly the same way as you did the flour, go into it, do 1, and then I'll give you the half.
Taking the things and I feel like I'm just really bringing them in close to my chest instinctively. And I don't know, just
Yeah, that's what I do too. I
near to
bring
me
things
while I manipulate
instinctively close to me as well, and I don't know why I do that. I mean, I suspect it was because when I was little I could see things when they were close up. Yeah.
Just think you're maybe a little bit more comfortable with manipulating
Controlled. It
things.
feels controlled when it's close to your body.
Yeah.
You need a half cup and 4 tablespoons of cornstarch.
Is the box the cornstarch?
Yes.
Are we using the box?
Yes. It sounds like you're just tapping the table.
That's right.
Don't do that. That's not a good search pattern. What you want to do is sweep gently in front of you until you find the item. Don't just tap randomly, because it's easy to miss things. 1 teaspoon baking soda.
I thought I would measure it in the crook of my finger.
Okay, I've stuck it in the jar. It's a small opening, so I recommend doing that over top of your bowl. So I flip it. It should be in the right way. So I point it. Yeah, it's in the right way.
Okay.
So the bowl is towards the back and the spoon part is towards the front. And I just shovel a bunch of it towards the side, run it up the side, and then I turn this way on its side so that when I pull it out, the spoon is facing the sky, or the spoon opening, and then I just flip it into the bowl. Okay, so now we need the cinnamon. So I take the entire lid off because I never use the shaker. I can't tell how much is in when I just start shaking. So I do the exact same thing as I do with the other things, and we need 3 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. This one's a little more complicated because I can't actually stick the teaspoon in. So if I wanted to do it really accurately, I go to the half teaspoon and I just do twice as much, because then I can actually fit the half teaspoon in the container. All right, so here's the ground ginger. And we need, ooh, that's strong. We need 2 teaspoons. Then we're gonna do a half teaspoon of salt. We have granulated sugar. Ooh, that's heavy. A half cup plus 2 tablespoons ground sugar, or granulated sugar, sorry, not brown sugar.
Half cup plus 2
tablespoons. So now take one of your stirring implements and just kind of stir that up, because that's all of the dry ingredients. I recommend kind of mixing that together before adding your brown sugar. First one going in. Second one going in, so that's 2/3 of a cup. Next, we need 3/4 of a cup of butter each. So how do you suspect you're going to be able to tell on the butter how much is what?
I don't suppose I could melt it.
No. In baking, you typically should soften your butter but never melt it.
I don't know.
Because it has little printed gradations on it to tell you how much it is. So I can tell you that half of this giant stick is 1 cup. So usually what I do is on the outside with the paper still on, I use my fingernail and feel for roughly halfway, which I suspect is about here, and then I just dent it with my fingernail. So that's my 1 cup measurement. Then I kind of imagine, okay, what is 3/4 of that going to be? So then I just have to kind of guesstimate. Yeah, I was gonna let you just kind of go to town independently and kind of figure out your own ways, but I think it would have probably ended in disaster. In the nicest way possible. I've set my kitchen on fire 3 times when I was trying to learn how to cook. Just because I didn't do things properly and I never had the formal training to know what the appropriate thing to do was. And I'm not liking how my whisk is doing it, so I have no qualms about getting my hands in the dough and just making sure that I can kind of get it initially mixed in pretty well, just using my hands. I'm gonna move ahead and then I'll walk you through what the next steps are. So I have added 6 tablespoons of molasses and 4 tablespoons of honey. This is where things get a little more complicated because when you're doing wet measure, I find with the measuring spoons it gets a lot harder. I'm gonna let you try and figure it out and then I'll tell you what I do. How are you trying? What are you trying to do?
I'm taking both of my fingers and I'm putting them on either side of the spoon and I'm pouring into the spoon. Feeling if I get anything on my fingers on either side of the spoon.
That's not a bad tactic. What I do is I actually put my finger on the edge of the spoon. So I hold the spoon in my left hand.
I'll put my already got stuff.
Yeah, I know it's got lots of stuff in it. It's harder. Yeah, it is hard, especially after you do the first one. So I hold it in my left hand and I use my pointer finger to feel the edge of the spoon. And then I kind of I touch the rim to my finger, and then I move back just a 1/4 centimeter, and then when it touches my finger, that's when I dump, and I use my finger to help push the stuff out of the spoon. I've given up on my beater. I have to do this by hand since I don't have the mixer.
I think I accidentally poured it all in.
Oh boy,
I didn't
did
notice.
you miss?
No, I don't know.
I forgot to tell you about the eggs.
Mm-hmm. Trying to sabotage me?
No! I can't see you.
So what's your recommendation?
My recommendation is use one hand to tap it pretty hard on the side, and then I use both hands to hang onto both pieces of the eggshell to pull it apart. That way I don't drop a piece. Ah! You just hit me in the face with the parchment paper.
Alright.
Okay, so what's gonna happen now is I'm going to give you some flour, and we have to lightly dust the flour on the parchment paper.
Okay.
Because otherwise our dough is going to stick. Literally pick up some flour from the container, and I just kind of sprinkle it around, and then spread it around with my hand. And I am also dusting the rolling pin, which it says it doesn't need, but
But she knows from experience, dude.
yeah. This dough is thick. I do not have the upper body strength for this.
Where's my dough?
I don't know. It's in your bowl?
Where's my bowl?
It's at the front of the table?
We're going to speed through this next bit because it took forever. We rolled the dough 3/8 of an inch thick and took our pre-made house piece stencils and cut out each one using a butter knife, re-rolling the dough as needed to make more pieces. I used rectangular pieces of paper and even a bottle cap to create window cutouts on many of my pieces.
We're going vlog style up in here. I have some candies, and I want to make stained glass windows in my gingerbread, so before it goes in the oven, I have to smash up these.
I put the candy dust in my window cutouts and put my gingerbread in the oven while Robbie finished cutting out his pieces. We ran out of dough, so I made a new batch off camera so we could make the final bits. Now let's show you what we ended up with and give our final thoughts.
Is everything out of the oven?
Yeah.
Oh god, no.
How long has that been in there?
No. Okay, so here's what I got. Looks like a respectable front and side of a home.
Yay!
Got a couple roof tiles here. Looks like I got my doughs mixed up a little bit. Tamara's look a lot better than mine.
I went through and I smashed up the candy and I poured it in the window slats. So now, when you peel this back very delicately, you actually get a transparent stained glass window. Can you see through it?
Ooh la la, I sure can.
Yeah, does it look good?
Looks great.
What colors did it end up being?
Orange and yellow.
Ooh, cool. So I have my front archway. This is the front of my house. Got my back over here, 2 sides, all 4 pieces for my chimney. And my 2 roof pieces are probably different because I had to use a different dough. It's gonna be fun to put together. Well, that was an adventure, and this is just part 1. Part 2 is gonna get even more wild. This took an awful lot longer than we anticipated. It took you a while to cut out your pieces. You were struggling a little bit there, I think. But, I wanna know what your takeaways are here. What was easy? What was hard? What techniques worked for you? What do you feel you still could have used a little bit more help with?
I certainly appreciate the struggle using honey and molasses, things like that, inside of measuring spoons.
So now you see why I never use measuring spoons in the kitchen?
Yeah.
It's just a pain.
I hear that. As far as things like the stencils that we used, that was really tricky. Getting the dough to the same kind of level is just done by feel. Then figuring out where the pieces would fit on that one sheet as best as possible. I mean, we ended up having less dough anyway, but that was also really tricky. And even the cutting I found to be quite a challenge. I just ended up placing my fingers alongside the paper and tearing the dough and just kind of shoring it back up by pressing inwardly on it towards the end. So my lines aren't the straightest for sure.
That should still work. We're going to be putting a lot of icing to kind of hold our houses together. So if that technique works for you or it works for somebody else at home, that's fine. But for me, when I cut, it depends on what I'm doing. But I suspect you could probably see in the footage that a lot of the time, if I use my knife and you kind of run it next to your guide or your paper cutter, if you hit it, your knife is going to stop.
And I don't slide my knife along because it's really easy to go off track, but I just kind of, once I'm lined up, I press down. And I line up and I press down, and I line up and I press down. So it creates almost like a perforated edge, and then that's way easier to get it out. The same thing goes if you want to put one finger outside your knife and one finger inside on the guide. That's going to help you stay straight as well. So you're cutting in between your fingers. That's going to keep you going in a straight line, whereas if you were just kind of trying to slide it, do it regularly just by watching, it would never work. As for telling the thickness, what I do when I roll out my dough is the edges are always going to be thinner than the center. When I have the dough rolled out and I think it's close to where it needs to be, I actually lift up the edge of the dough and kind of feel how heavy it is in the middle and feel the difference in heaviness between the outside and the middle. So if it's heavy in the middle and it's light on the outside, then I know, okay, the middle's still too thick and I need to make that even, so I just roll out the middle a little more. So for me, it's mostly weight-based, and I do use my fingers to kind of tell how thick it is, but it's mostly weight that I use to kind of gauge how thick things are and to keep it even. As for measuring, how did you find that?
That was probably one of the harder parts. I can certainly appreciate the difficulty dealing with things like molasses and honey in small measuring devices like measuring spoons. I think I ended up with just one spoonful of honey just right onto the table when I wasn't paying attention at one point. And yeah, it's hard to really tell that that's the case proceeding through until you find the mess.
So I mean, it is a genuine struggle. You just have to make sure that you're paying attention all the time. And that's, I think, the biggest challenge, is making sure that you're organized and making sure you have a clear, almost understanding in 3 dimensions of the space around you and where everything is. So now you know, again, why I am so fastidious about organization and keeping things where they go. Even when it comes to being in the kitchen, nothing gets messy on the counters because I'll lose lids, I'll lose ingredients, I won't find everything that I need.
I found the organization to be the most frustrating part for me, honestly. Just trying to feel around, feel for a specific piece of paper, feel around for even what I just cut out. I'm used to just being able to rely on my eyes to just grab it, but I was just feeling around and I didn't know where things were. So having that organization and that intention to be organized going through is
necessary, absolutely a necessity.
Absolutely.
I think
So I
I've
took the
made you,
time.
I made you suffer enough. I'm gonna let you decorate your house with your eyes, because then you can take full advantage of whatever colors and fun designs that you want. I'm not gonna make you try and ice the thing with a blindfold on. That's just gonna be a disaster and a half. I won't do that to you. They can all laugh at me trying to ice it, because I'm terrible with a piping bag.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's gonna wrap us up for part 1. If you enjoyed this, please don't forget to subscribe. Part 2 is coming in 2 days, so stay tuned for that. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and you can finally find out how these gingerbread houses turn out. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.